Hey guys, it's been a while, but today I'm going to do another movement tutorial, but this time we're going to be doing it with a sprite, and we're going to animate the sprite as well at the same time, because a few people have been asking about that. So we're just going to jump straight in, and as always we create our index HTML file, and we're going to create a folder with our scripts in it. So that's where we put our main.js, and we're also going to create another one called input handler.js. That's okay. So we got our index, main.js, and input. So we're gonna link these together. So what I like to do is I like to do the exclamation mark, press enter, and it just automatically does the entire layout of the HTML page for you. So we're just gonna call it Sprite movement. Now for linking our main.js, because it's in the scripts folder, we have to reference that. I will do that. So we add the source of the script. We can't just do main.js because it doesn't exist in the current directory of the index HTML file. So we have to put it as scripts folder and then main.js. And you can see even our input handler shows up as well. Then we want to, we also want to reference our input handler as well. Now we're gonna go live. I have a live server plugin for it, so you can see our main.js and input handler. Oh, input handler.js. Whoops. That's fine. So they're working. These are linked. I actually have a live server. You don't have to do it like that. You can actually just click on the index HTML file directly, and it will still work fine. The only difference between a live server and just clicking on it locally like that is that on a live server it updates instantly, so you don't have to refresh the page constantly if you were on a local. So that's just the benefit of having that. So now to start off, you should also have your assets for your sprite or player that you want to move around. So I'm going to, in the HTML, I'm going to create an image tag, and the source is going to be, or we'll actually rename this to a lowercase a, just so referencing is easier. So I'll do assets slash, and then I'm just going to do the idle state of when it is forward. I'll just quickly show you guys these assets so you can see. So this would be the forward idle state of the character. It's a bit blurry, but that will be fine. And I've got all the others. So you gotta have walking and idle states, obviously. So this would just be the default state of the player. So it's just gonna be it idling downwards or forwards, I guess you could say. Okay, so now we've got that, and we want to give it an ID so we can reference it later. So I'm just gonna call it player image. It's simple as that. Now we go into main.js, and there's multiple ways you can do this, but I'm going to do this a little bit more advanced now. I'm going to create a class, and I'm going to call it player in all capitals and an underscore. Then we make a constructor, and we're going to put the x, y, not t, x, y, velocity x left, velocity x right, velocity y up, and velocity y down. That's all going to be in the constructor. That should be pretty much it. And then I'm going to skip past this, but you're going to have to write it all out just like this. So okay, so once you've written all this out, you're almost done with the class. It's pretty simple actually, but essentially what we're going to do now is create a variable, and we're gonna do let, and we're gonna call it player equals the player class, which is this here that we've just created, and we want to set the x. So this is, imagine you're passing in values into parentheses in a function. It's pretty much the exact same thing. So the x value, the first one here, set that to, let's just say we're gonna center it. You can do inner width divided by 2. This is just a center. You don't have to do this at all. You can just do like 500. Yeah, no, you know what? I'll just do 500 for simplicity's sake. And and obviously we don't want the character to move, so I'm going to set all 4 velocities to 0, just like that. So we set the X to 500, the Y to 500. These are just base values, just to put it somewhere on the screen. You can also do 0 if you want it to be on the top left. And then the velocity X left, right, up, and down, they're all set to 0 because we don't want the player to move off the bat, unless you want yours to. Anyways, so now we got the class set up. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go into the input handler, and we're going to create an event listener. So we go window dot add event listener, and we want to listen for when a key is pressed. So that'll be key down, and then function. We're listening for a key down. So we're using WASD as our movement input. So we're going to listen if forgot to put in E. That's going to be our value. You can do anything for this. You can just do like, I don't know, value thingo if you want. I'm just going to do E because it's quick and easy. So e.code, and now actually what I'll do is I'll console log the e.code for you so you can see very clearly what is happening. Oh, another issue. I forgot to I forgot to use the new equals a new class. Now back to where we were before. As I was saying, we're gonna console log the actual code for the key down event. So as you can see now, I'll play a Sprite. When I press S, it will say key S. When I press W, A, S, D, any key, doesn't matter. It shows you what the key code is. So essentially what we're going to be doing is we want to do if the e.code equals the key W, then we can execute what we want in there. So you have to type it out individually. That didn't go down. So W, A, S, and D. So now we've got our key down event. So this is what's going to happen. So when we press W, it will happen here. Another thing, while you have it out like this, copy it, and you want to paste it down here. And on the key up, when the key goes up, we also want to set the velocity back to 0. Okay, now what we can do is, it's very simple. We just want to reference, because we have the player value, the variable. So we're going to player dot velocity y up, because when we press W, we want to go up, equals -5. I should probably also add in a speed value as well. The speed value can be anything. 5 is pretty standard. So then we'll just make it equal player.speed, but negative because we want to move up. It's pretty much just like this for the rest of it. So when they press A, that'll be velocity x left because we want them to move to the left side of the screen. Velocity x left equals negative player speed because we're moving left, and we're minusing the x value. And because if you remember, on the furthest left side and the highest top side of the screen are both 0, so that we want to minus to get to those values. Now for this one, S, that's on the y-axis, so velocity y down, and we want to increase this the y value, so we don't minus it. And then velocity x right, to go right, obviously. So now we've got these values in. It's pretty simple. Now what you have to pretty much just do is, that did not work. Try that, and then delete these two. You don't have to do this. You can type it in manually if you want. I can't be bothered doing that though. So now when we let go of the key and it goes back up, we want to set it back to 0, or else we're just going to keep moving on for infinity. So we don't want that. We want to stop. Okay, so now we've got the velocity. We're setting the velocities. Nothing will happen though. You can see if I go in here. Oops. Line 10, main.js. Whoops. I accidentally deleted that. Little error. As you can see, our player is here. I'm pressing WASD. Nothing is happening. That's because we're not setting the values. So, I mean, this is pretty hard to see. I'm actually going to quickly set the width of this player. So, to do that, you want to access this style part of the image. And we want to set the position. This is CSS. So, we want to set the position to absolute because we want it where we want it, not relative to anything. Then we want to left. This would be how far it is from the left side of the screen. Just set it to 0 pixels. It's just standard. And how far we want it from the top, which is 0 pixels. And then, of course, the original reason we want to set the width to, hard to say, maybe 50 pixels. And then the height to 70 pixels. It's hard to get these ratios right. He's a bit squished and blurry. So we increase his height by 10 maybe. That might work. Bit better. I'll try 90. That looks pretty good. So as you can see though, he's very pixelated. No, not pixelated, sorry. Well, of course he's pixel art, but it's very blurry. And a way we can actually do that is change the image rendering. So this is another CSS property. So it's just called image rendering. And we're going to change it to pixelated. And this will just increase the quality by a lot because it's pixel art, which is insane. Because the reason I love pixel art is because how good the quality can come out, especially with the image rendering in CSS. So we've got the character all set up, like the image sprite. Now we got to set the position. So inside the class, I'm going to create a function, and I'm going to call it update. Now, I have to brackets. Whoops. Okay, so we want to create a normal function. We'll also call it update, and we want to do request animation frame. If you don't know what this does, it just calls this function repeatedly every frame. So we want to call update. That's what we want to call. Awesome. Now, of course, none of this will work unless we don't call the function to begin with. So now what we want to do is actually update the player. So we go in here, update, player.update. So now we're accessing the player class, and we want to call the function inside of the player, which is here. And then this is basically just like a regular function. It just looks a bit neater and looks like you know how to program. So now we want to set the actual position according to the velocity of the player. So to do this, we can do this.x. And so essentially what this does, like this command right here, is it actually just gets the variable from inside the constructor, you can say. It's just a simple way to put it. It's pretty much all you need to know. It's just this variable right here. Pretty much, like, if you don't have to do this, you can do player.x, but this, like, say if you had like really long names, so this is the player, you would have to type in that every single time you want to access the x position. But if you're inside the actual class, then you can just do this because it knows where the variable is from. Anyways, so we just rename this to player, correct spelling, and we want to change the x and y position according to the velocity. So this.x plus equals this.velocity left, and we want to do this for velocity right as well. And this.y plus equals this.velocity y up, and same thing, velocity y, velocity y down. So now we're updating the actual position, but it's still not going to do anything, and that is simply because we're not actually updating the left and top values of the actual sprite. So to do this, now that we've updated the variable x first. What we can do is earlier we gave the image ID of player image, so that's what we called it. So that's how we reference it. So we'd say player image. Oh, we should probably go document dot get element by ID player image dot style, because remember the style right here, and we want to access the left inside of it and the top as well. So style, remember that. So style dot left equals this dot x plus pixels. I'll run you through how this works in a second. I'll just finish typing it out. So once you've gotten the left, just do the exact same thing, but for the y. Okay, now I can explain how this works. So we're getting from the actual document here, and we want to get the element by the ID. So this image tag here is an element, and it has, every element should have an ID. If you haven't given it an ID, you can't reference it. But because we've actually given it an ID here, I'll put this here so it's easier to see. Because we're giving it the ID here, we can reference it. So we want to go get the element by the ID, which is player image, as in here. And now we want to change the style, which is this right here. And we want to access the left position, which is this right here. And we want to set it to our x-axis position on our class, which is right here. And then it's exactly like that, but the measurement we want to use is pixels. So remember that. If you just put in 0, it won't actually work. It needs to have a measurement, and that's just how we measure it. There are other measurements, but pixels is the one I use. It's just easier. So obviously these are just normal integers. You have to add pixel at the end of it. So now we've gotten everything updated. It should work just fine. Movement. Oh, look, you can even see it's redone it. So now we actually got movement controls, and he's moving around. So that is nice. Now we actually have to animate it. So there are many ways to do this, but I think the way we're going to do it is, so instead of setting the source here, we're going to set it in a different place in a constant update function. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to do let key a down. I'll do key W down equals false, and we got to do that for both WAS and D. So now we've got key W down through to D. So we're just going to, instead of setting the image here, we're going to set key W down to equal true. And we're just going to do that. And also remember, in the key up, we want to change that to false. Oh, no, to true. But you do that for in the key up, you want to change that to false. So true and true. So key A. Why do I have so much trouble with this? S and D. There we go. So now get rid of all this. And listen, and let's make it false. Okay, there we go. So we've got we just set that to false when the key goes up, and we'll set this one to true when the key goes down. So now in our update function, we can probably make another one. Or in our actual update here, we can set it to be if key W down, then we can set our sprite. So once again, before how we set the sprite source, we want to do that again here. So pretty much you just want to do this for each one, just like before, like key A, S, and D. So now we you have to change this as well. So walking to the left, walking down, and walking to the right. So now in here, oops, key W down is not defined. That is because it isn't defined at the current time when we call this. So what we'll have to do is go back into our index, and we will have to reference input handler first before, because in input handler these variables get declared after main.js is actually been referenced in the index, which means they don't exist yet. So you can either put your update, you can either call that later once it has been defined, or you can just simply move your script further up in the hierarchy. Okay, so anyways, it does work, sort of, but it's setting the image very rapidly, more rapidly than before, and exactly the same as before. We want to just check that the source isn't equal to the actual what we want to set it to. So when you get the attribute is not equal to whatever you want to set it to, and just like that. And we do that for all of them. Okay, so now that we're done, and we're checking if the attribute is not equal to the source that we're setting it to, and now it still doesn't work, and that is because I made a stupid mistake by accident. I did get attribute and I didn't actually do the source. That is my fault. It's been a while. Okay, now it will work just fine, just like that. But we still have this gliding issue. Now, the reason that there is still this static type of sprite is because when you move diagonally, you press S and D at the same time. If you go diagonally down and right, then you're pressing S and D at the same time. So what's happening is you're actually setting key S down and D down true at the same time. So then what happens is you're actually setting the sprite to be equal to walking forward, and you're also making it right at the same time. So that's why that happens. But how do we change this? So what we can do to actually fix this is rearrange your hierarchy so that both the A and D if statements are at the very top. Then what you want to do is, so I'll make this a bit easier, I'll separate them. For the key W down and S down, what we can do is we want to check if the key A, so key A down and is equal to false, and we also want to check if key D down is also equal to false, and we want to do that for both if statements, just like that. And now you can see we no longer have that problem, and it walks diagonally just fine without the animation stopping. So that is how you do animated movement for sprites. It's a lot to take in to begin with, but as soon as you wrap your head around it, it's pretty much fine. Another thing to also note, there is no stopping animation, so we also have to do that. How we fix it is we just go into our input handler, and in our key up, we just want to set the sprite back to what we want it to be. So for example, let me find, there it is, source. We want to set it to equal, for W, we want it to be assets / player idle, and it would be backwards, or backward.gif. So now it goes up and stops, just like that. Just do that for in your key up for each and every one of your if statements, and you're good to go. So just like that, now I have an idle state, just like that for every single event. Left, up, right, and down. That is movement for your sprites in JavaScript. I really hope this helped, guys. If it did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you maybe in the near future.